Hey there, and welcome. Today, we are going to map out a process that honestly happens every single day in just about every company, the request lifecycle. We're going to break down the entire six-stage journey that takes a simple need and turns it into a finished task. So, let's jump right in. You've definitely been here before, right? You submit a help ticket, you fill out a form online, or maybe you call a help desk. And then, silence. It can seriously feel like your request just got launched into a black hole. But behind the scenes, there's actually a very clear step-by-step process at work, and we're about to pull back the curtain on it. So here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll look at the journey in three main chunks. First, the intake. That's where it all begins. Then, the review, which is all about analyzing and approving the request. We'll wrap up with the resolution, where the work finally gets done. And at the end, we'll talk about why having this structure is so incredibly valuable. All right, let's kick things off with the intake phase. This part is all about one thing: capturing what the user needs and getting it officially logged into the system so it doesn't get lost. Okay, before we dive into the details, here's the entire roadmap at a glance: submission, logging, categorization, authorization, fulfillment, and finally closure. Every single stage has a very specific job, and when you put them all together, you get a really organized and efficient system. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with submission. This is that moment when a user, whether it's you, a coworker, or a customer, officially raises their hand and says, "I need something." You can think of it as the starting gun for the entire lifecycle. And these days, a request can come from pretty much anywhere. It could be a self-service portal, a simple email, a phone call, or even a live chat. In some of the more advanced systems, requests can even be fired off automatically through an API. The key, though, is to funnel all of these different channels into one single system. It just makes it so much easier for the user. And that brings us to stage 2, logging. Now this step, it's completely non-negotiable. This is the exact moment a vague need becomes an official, trackable piece of work. See, without logging, a request is just a conversation that can be forgotten. With logging, it's an item that has to be actioned. So what happens is a unique ticket is created for that request, often with an ID like SR for service request. This little identifier becomes the single source of truth for everyone involved. From this point on, every single action, every update is tied directly to this ticket. Nothing gets lost. Okay, so the request is logged and in the system. Now we enter the review phase. This is where the team really starts to dig in, figure out what's being asked, and check if it needs any special permissions before they can move forward. Stage 3 is all about understanding what we're dealing with. It's not enough to just have the request, right? We need to know what kind of request it is, and maybe more importantly, how urgent it is compared to everything else in the queue. You can think of this as the triage step of the whole process. So how does that actually work? Well, the team uses something called a request model, which is basically a rulebook for classifying the ticket. Is this for new hardware, a software bug, an access request? Getting this right is absolutely critical. Just imagine a major server outage getting miscategorized as a minor software glitch. The impact is huge, but it would just sit there in a low priority line. This model prevents that by properly assessing the urgency and the business impact, making sure the biggest fires get put out first. Next up is stage 4, authorization. Think of this as a checkpoint or a gate. The big question here is, does this request need a green light from somebody else before any real work can start? Now, this stage is conditional. Not every single request needs it. A simple password reset? Nah, probably not. But a request for a brand new, expensive laptop? Oh, you bet. Authorization is a crucial control step, and it's usually required for anything that needs financial approval or a sign-off from a manager. Once a request is totally understood, prioritized, and, if it needed it, approved, we move into the final and most active phase, resolution. This is where all the talking stops and the doing finally begins. This brings us to stage 5, fulfillment. And honestly, this is the heart of the entire process. This is where the actual value is delivered to the user and their need is finally met. Every single step before this has been leading up to this moment. So the work itself gets done by a specialized fulfillment group. This could be the IT hardware team for that new laptop, or the software support team for a bug fix, or even the HR team for an onboarding task. The point is, the request gets routed to the specific experts who have the skills and the access to get the job done right. And that brings us to the final step in this journey, stage 6, closure. Now, the work might be done, but the life cycle isn't truly complete until the loop is officially closed with the person who started this whole thing in the first place. Closure really has two key parts. First, the user confirms that the request has been fulfilled to their satisfaction. This prevents tickets from being closed too early. And second, a satisfaction survey is often sent out, which creates this vital feedback loop so the team can keep improving. So we've walked through all 6 stages, but why is having such a defined, structured process so important? Why go through all this trouble? Let's put it all together. As you can see, when we lay it all out, each stage has a really clear purpose. The process moves logically from capturing and understanding a need to getting it approved, doing the actual work, and then finally confirming that it was a success. Nothing is left to chance. Ultimately, this is the big takeaway. Without this kind of structure, what you have is a chaotic mess of emails, random phone calls, and verbal requests with zero visibility or accountability. With a defined life cycle, you get clarity. Everyone knows exactly what stage a request is in, who's responsible for it, and what needs to happen next. It literally transforms chaos into a well-oiled machine. And that leaves us with one final thought. This 6-step framework isn't just for IT help desks. Not at all. It can be applied to almost any process where work is requested and then delivered. So think about it for a second. Where in your own work could a structured 6-step process just like this one turn a bit of chaos into some much-needed clarity?